Dude, he's just straight up tanking these. This guy's a fucking giga chad. See what I mean about pallies? You get like these insane ones, and then you get these soy boy ones. They're like one trick prop pallies are like fucking gods among men, dude. Yo, what is up, gamers? Very excited to be bringing you this deathless Halls of Valor plus 22 run today, and I'm going to be talking in a commentary voiceover style about everything that you can be looking to do, whether you're playing a demon hunter or any other class. I'm going to put some emphasis on interrupts and purgeable spells and things like that, maybe where to pop your cooldowns and think about that kind of stuff, and any extra mechanics and secret tech that might be possible on any of the bosses or trash packs. As you watch and listen to the video, I'd appreciate if you scroll down to the comment section and just let me know if you like this kind of video, and I'll bring you more for my Demon Hunter and other classes that I play, like Shadow Priest and soon to come Shaman. So let's jump into it then. I'll throw my talents and my gear and loadout and all that stuff on the screen while we do the countdown. And of course, because we're playing Demon Hunter, at 6 seconds on the countdown, I'm going to be using my Immolation Aura, my Blood Elf Arcane Torrent, my I-Beam into a Metamorphosis. What this does as a Demon Hunter, just let me get that extra free Metamorphosis at the start of the key. There's no reason not to do it, you don't lose anything, and it just gives you a couple extra seconds of free Metamorphosis on the first pull. So as we go into this then, the aim of the first pack is the tank's going to pull the first 2 mobs, then the first 3 mobs, and then the last pack. So there's 3 packs altogether, pretty standard pull in Halls of Valor, especially when you get into higher keys. Now the important things in this pack is to interrupt the Thundercallers, and it is bolstering in this key. So we're going to get the 2 Thundercallers down so we don't have to worry about interrupts anymore. And then straight after that, we want to be focusing actually on the Drake, because if we focus on the small mobs, they have less health than the Drake. If we kill all those off without, putting focus on the Drake, he's going to get bolstered into, I think, like 7 or 8 stacks, and he's just going to one-shot the tank with a breath. So you see I immediately switch to the Drake. You can use both interrupts, like actual kicks on the Thundercallers, Thunderbolt, and you can also use stops like stuns, imprison, and anything like that. If your class has like a fear or something like that, you can also use that to stop the Thunderer casts. And you see the big damage going out there, taking care of that first pack. The DK is absolutely pumping as well, so that's always nice to see an Unholy DK just popping off on the AoE packs here. Now, we don't really have any cooldowns left for the boss now, but this is a pretty simple boss. You don't even really need much healing, so your healer can kind of just go crazy with DPS on this fight. The only damage that anyone should take is actually the Horn of Valor. Anything other than that is the lightning swirlies that can spawn after the Drakes fly over, and then the whirling blades on the ground, but they're actually entirely dodgeable. The whirling blade has like a pre-cast animation of a swirly, so you can move away from it. Just make sure it doesn't clip you. I think the hitbox is slightly bigger than the actual blade looks when it's flying around on the floor, and I think they move slightly as well. So if you're standing too close, there's a chance it could just come in and kind of nip you in the bum, and that wouldn't be very good, because on a high key, especially if it overlaps with like a Horn of Valor coming out, that's gonna pretty much kill you in one shot. So obviously do your best to turn your camera when the Drakes come. So the Horn of Valor is going to come and do a bunch of damage to you. That's your sign. Every time you take that huge bunch of damage and you hear, if you play with game sounds, it goes like BOOM. That's the Horn of Valor coming in. You just got to spin your camera, look for the Drakes. You can obviously trust your tank to do it, because he's going to be the one, or she's going to be the one, to move that boss into these one of these 3 lanes that's on this room. You obviously want to trust in them having this, but just to be sure, you should just double check, because I have definitely seen tanks move late and basically deplete keys to this. So just be sure, make sure that you're not the one going down to that mechanic. And that's pretty much it for the boss. It just repeats Horn of Valor, you heal up. As long as your healer can top you before the next Horn of Valor, no one should ever really take any damage here. The leap he does into the sky used to be a frontal back in Legion, but it's now just a tank buster kind of thing. So as long as the tank is staying relatively healthy, that should never be an issue. Don't worry about standing in front of the boss, it doesn't cleave you or anything. So if you do need to stand in front of the boss for any reason, as a Demon Hunter, you can see I'm flapping all over the place. I'm not worried about going in front of the boss. For some reason, the Rogue took a hit there though, and I'm not sure quite why. maybe the tank was out of range when he did the tank buster. In that case, that could be like a freak incident, or your tank needs to make sure that he's always in range of the boss, especially when that tank mechanic is coming out. So that's just something to be extra careful on if you are like pre-made with your tank for something. So that boss does have a ton of HP. You can see that I actually saved my cooldowns now for this next pack. Depends on the DPS of your group if you have good boss damage or not. Usually, especially on Fortified, you won't need to pop your cooldowns on that boss. As a demon hunter, at least like 3 minutes, you'll usually use them on the first pack, and you have them back up for this pull here, which is another double pull. We usually go right side, on the staircase, pulling a Mystic. So the interrupts in this pack, very, very key. You to have one person interrupting the Mystic, and it is the not the rune, I think it's called Holy Radiance. So you need to be interrupting definitely the Holy Radiance. Treat the Rune of Healing, you know, if it goes off, if you can interrupt it and you have a spare, great, but treat it kind of as a pool of Sanguine. It's not the biggest deal if it goes off, gets a tick or two out, but the Holy Radiance, if that one goes, it's basically like an AoE lay on hands for all the mobs. If that one's going off once or especially twice, you're going to have a much harder time with this pack. So you need 2 interrupts on the Holy Radiances, on the 2 Mystics, and then you need to have someone getting the Etch. Now you can interrupt the Etch on the Rune Carver with either a normal interrupt, or you can also use like an AoE, you know, like an AoE stun, but wait until the cast has actually gone off. It has like a charge up time where you normally interrupt it, and then it kind of like has a channel down, so you can use like a stop or an imprison or something in my case to interrupt it once it starts channeling down. So I let it go all the way up and then start channeling down, then I'll use my stop on it. Or obviously you can just kick it at any point if you're using an actual real kick. So going into the next pack then, another few kicks here, Thundercallers, and also to note, by the way, there is a Shield Maiden in both of these packs. If you're playing a melee DPS, you're going to have a pretty rough time in pugs with the tank if they're not, you know, kiting it like this Paladin is. This Paladin was great, by the way. I'm going to be probably talking about him as we go through the run. Yeah, he was awesome. He kited perfectly in like a circle. He really kind of carried our group, to be honest. So kiting in the circle, no sudden turning and stuff, because if the tank turns these Shield Maidens as they're casting, they do actually follow, so he can't sidestep the cast or anything like that. He can walk backwards and he will avoid the Mortal Hue from the Shield Maidens, but he can't sidestep them or something, and then it's just going to turn the mob and probably kill the melee. The amount of times I've died to that on my Demon Hunter is absolutely crazy, when I've been like, you know, at the very side or behind the mob, and it's just been turned on to me at the last second. Is very frustrating. So I have a bit of a PTSD against Shield Maidens, and you can see that I play very carefully in these packs. Any pack where there's a Shield Maiden, I play like very far at the back. It's even worth losing a little bit of damage for, just to make sure that I'm definitely not going to take a Mortal Hue. There's obviously various weak auras you can get to remind you when that Mortal Hue is coming. I think Big Wigs and Little Wigs plays a sound when it's coming out, so listen for the sound and just take a step back maybe when it's coming. And then there's other weak auras which can play like gunshot sounds and things like that. I'm a bit of a fan of a shotgun whenever frontal's coming out. That's just like a trigger in my brain now that I need to look at where things are facing, where I'm standing and stuff like that. So most of the trash all the way through these kind of actual halls bit is the same. You got the Thundercallers, I talked about those. You need to interrupt the Thunderbolts. You can do that with a stop or an normal kick. You got this Purifier on this pack here that does the Cleansing Flame. This is the only Purifier that you do want to take usually in the dungeon. Just make sure you kick that every single time. If that one goes through, it's going to channel a bunch of swirlies at someone's feet, which will pretty much one-shot them. So just make sure that you're rotating kicks on that guy. I think you need 2 or even 3 kicks on the Purifier. And then these Aspirants, just as a frontal beam, watch out for the beam. It's usually going to be fired at the tank, so tank needs to be especially careful to watch where that beam of light is going after the Aspirant does the charge of the shield. You can see there that it does that leap on someone as well. It's doing a leap on a ranged DPS. In our case, they are actually ducking down the staircase to cancel that leap, and it won't recast. So it's going to target a range. They're going to quickly go out of line of sight, and it's not going to leap away, so it will stay in the pack. So that's something that you can tell your ranged DPS to do as well here. But yeah, it's going to be mystics. You want to kick, as I said, the not the rune, but the holy radiance, and then the rune carvers you kick the etch, and the thundercallers you kick the thunderbolt, and that's pretty much all the trash in this kind of segment. We're going to encounter marksmen later as well, which you can use stops on their frontal. But you can see here, as we get up to Hyrja, we are pulling double on these trash mobs. Now you got to be very, very careful here, because it's going to be Eye of the Storm, and then you're going to have to deal with the dance. You can see I took a tick there from one of the balls. Luckily it wasn't fortified, or I would have gone down there. Even if this was a 23, I think I would have gone down there as well. But the timing on pulling these mobs, some tanks do this incorrectly. You need to wait for the shield. You need to pull left side first on Solston and wait for the shield to go down. And if you pull exactly as the shield goes down, then the timing should be good, and you should never get an overlap with both the balls dance and the Eye of the Storm shield at the same time, because that's going to make these very, very difficult to pull together. And just make sure on Olmir the Enlightened that you are kicking the Searing Light if you can. Otherwise it's going to do like 80% of your health maybe on a non-fortified, so you definitely just need to be aware of that. Now I did also, you might have seen I made a YouTube short on this actually, that there is a dance. I'll talk about it a little bit on Hyrja, but for that trash mob it is the same as the dance that I'm going to talk about on Hyrja the boss herself, so stay tuned for that one. Now we're going to pull Hyrja straight onto the left hand side here. Gonna pop all my cooldowns at the beginning, and in my case, if you have small defensives like Blur on a 1 minute cooldown, they will be up for every single shield for Eye of the Storm. So I just blur every single one of those, and I'm going to save my darkness for the second one. Generally healers will pop something on the first and they'll struggle a little bit more on the second one. So we're going to go lightning side, holy side, lightning side, holy side, and then you've got to make a decision if you go back to lightning or you stay on holy for 2 holies in a row. And if that happens, the second set of circles is really going to hurt. You need to save a personal for that as well. Now, you see here we are doing the dance. I stand at a diagonal to her, and then I wait for 2 sets of orbs to come out. Then I take a little sidestep behind the second set of orbs. Then you wait for 3 sets of orbs, and then you take a step back to your original position. And then you should never get hit by an orb in that case. You'll see it when we go back there the next side now that I've spoken about it. But we're basically just jumping between the left and the right side. Here I'm going to use my blur again as soon as it comes up. I'm also going to darkness with the shield. This was actually insanely OP with the anti-magic zone as well from the DK. Darkness plus anti-magic zone basically completely nullified that Eye of the Storm, which is usually one that healers really struggle on. So yeah, very, very nice tech there. Now the dance are going to come in again, and hopefully we're going to go 2 light sides here. You see the golden rings going out on people now. There's one on me. That one just does a little bit of damage, but if you do 2 holy sides, you see I'm doing the dance again. But if you do 2 holy sides, you're going to get 1, 2, 3 golden rings, and then 4, 5, 6 golden rings. So this is the 4th one on the skull mark, and now on the DK. That one's going to hurt. And then if we just stayed on holy side, you get 5 and 6. But we actually went back to storm side, which is pretty scary to be honest. On Tyrannical Key, this healer might struggle a little bit with this one, but it looks like he actually has it under control. I think this is like a health potion. I think we said we'll save health potions for third or something. The thing that is like the scariest in my opinion about the storm is the arcing bolt that she does directly after it finishes. So you've got like the whole Eye of the Storm and a shield phase. Does a ton of damage. Usually healers struggle a little bit with that one, especially on Tyrannical. And someone's a little bit lower than everyone else, and she does like a quick chain lightning straight afterwards, and that usually just is enough to finish someone off. You might have had people fall to the shield, like, or you're always wondering like, why is it always the very, very last tick? Well, it's actually the last tick plus the little chain lightning that she throws out at the same time. So moving now down to the other side of the hall, we got another mystic, and this is our first introduction to a marksman. So the marksmen are just going to do this snapshot ability where it just fires an arrow at a random person in the party. So the healers are just going to, look at somebody to potentially spot heal there, interrupting the rune carver, interrupting the mystic, And then there's a penetrating shot, which is actually a frontal, always aimed at the tank. So again, I have a nice little shotgun sound weak aura for every time that the penetrating shot is going off. So if I hear that weak aura, I know to look where the marksman's facing, and it will be shooting towards where the tank just was when I heard that gunshot sound. But you can also stop this. In general, it's safer to do that if the penetrating shot's going out. It's better, like, rather than you just dodge it yourself and just kind of spin the wheel if someone else gets hit by it, or if they were paying attention or not. It's better to actually use a stop if you have one. So you can use a stun or a hard CC of any kind, like a fear, an imprison, anything like that, which will kind of CC it for a second, and that will cancel the cast and it won't recast for maybe 10-12 seconds, something like that. So just be looking out for the marksman. That should be the only one that you play in the whole key, I believe, unless you take some of these packs of humanoids down in this zone. But we've gone for the Drake on this one and pulled some stags on top of it. Now these stags, you got to watch out for. They have like a bucking charge, and that just is going to be a frontal. So just look where they're facing, look at their cast bars, make sure you don't get hit by that bucking charge as like a collateral damage. Usually it will do it on the tank, but if you are dodging around or something on the dragon, then potentially it could go in your direction, because the stags do like to run around. And then we follow that with the pull of the bulls, which is very easy percentage. Piercing horns, I believe, is a frontal on the tank. Again, they weren't very imaginative back in Legion, to be honest. Most of the Legion dungeons, if you remember Karazhan from back in the end of Shadowlands as well, if you went to lower Karazhan, basically every mob in there had like 1 to 2 frontals. Same as in Halls of Valor, they've got Shield Maidens have a frontal, we have the bulls have a frontal, we have the bears have a frontal, the stags have a frontal, the Drake has a frontal. Like, basically this is why back in Legion, when M+ first came out, everyone just used to kite the trash, so it just never did anything, because if it wasn't in range of the tanks, it wouldn't do the frontal, so everyone just kind of kited the entire dungeon. And that was actually why they nerfed tank threat, because tanks used to just be completely like everything was just glued to them, right? They would go in, pop some cooldowns, and then just run, and as long as they could run faster than the trash, you could literally kite the trash back through the entire dungeon, and everyone would just DPS it down. So that was kind of the meta back in Legion with just big AoE classes. But they've kind of nerfed the tank threat, but they've kept all the frontals, so you've kind of just got to play it now, and it kind of sucks as a melee in this season, because every time we seem to go into Legion dungeons, it's just a very common theme there. So after those bulls, which you can use stuns on when they're doing their big swirly, otherwise just move out. It's very, very easy. They're basically target dummies. We're going on to Fenrir part 1. So Fenrir is pretty hard, one of the harder bosses in here. Probably the 2 hardest that you're going to fail on the most is going to be either Fenrir or Hyrja, whenever you're doing your pugs or premaze of Halls of Valor, especially on Tyrannical. Now, I've seen people wipe to these bosses on Fortified plenty of times, so you're definitely not off the hook just if it's Fortified week. But there are a couple things that you can do to make this a little bit easier on your party, particularly if you are a rogue, a night elf, or I think it's a mage. I don't think Feign Death works on hunters, but Fenrir in particular, when he does the leap on the first part, the part we're on now, from 100% to 60% when you kind of fight him as a trash mob, he does the leap onto 2 people, and on the boss, on the actual boss fight, he does it onto 4 people. Now, if you get the leap on you and you're playing on a rogue or a night elf or a mage or anything that has an invisibility or like a stealth, like a vanish on a rogue and a shadow meld on a night elf and an invisibility on a mage. Now, what you want to do is, if you get the leap on you, you want to run as far away as you can, because he'll leap the furthest person first. So you want to run as far away as you can, further than the rest of your teammates. If you know that you've got it and you're on comms or something, you can, say trust me, and they can stay in even and keep DPSing the boss while you move out. And you need to use your vanish and shadow meld and stuff while he's mid-air, and he'll actually cancel the leap, and he won't put the debuff on any of you. So when he actually leaps to you, not only is it gonna do a big hit, but it's gonna apply, I think it's a 30-second dot, which is just a bleed, and it really, really, really hurts. So that's like the healing check on the boss. along with the shred claw or whatever he does, that like AoE red circle around him. Just make sure you're stacked up on top of the boss so that splits damage between you guys. But that on top of the bleed that he does is the thing that's going to make this boss really, really hard to deal with. Now, if you have a rogue, as you see in our party, we have a rogue, so he is going to be cancelling that leap. And you'll see like how easy this boss actually goes down just because we can cancel that leap. It basically means the healer only has to heal the claw, the frenzy claw, which is that split damage between us. And then we obviously have to outrun the blood scent, I think it's called, right? But it's going to make this way, way, way easier. So some people particularly look for a rogue specifically for that reason. With an outlaw rogue, they should be able to vanish every single one of them, as long as they get the leap. As I said, it goes on 4 people, so you know there's a chance that it doesn't go on the rogue, and then they can't do the reset. So you know, he's got a 4 out of 5 chance of getting it, but there is a chance that that could not happen. Now on the scent of blood, I think we got a bop. Yeah, we did. We got a bop onto the DK on the first one, so that's just a physical damage immunity that the Pally placed onto the DK in that case, and that just means that we can stay DPS in the boss. Now warriors can also do this with, I think it's intervene. If you cast intervene as soon as the scent of blood is going off, then it's going to actually just for some reason bug it out and it just won't hit you. So if you got a prot warrior, which a lot of people do run these days, he can intervene the target and just run away for like half a second while you get the intervene, and you can move back in, because the intervene duration I believe is exactly the same duration as the actual scent of blood itself. So unless he's pixel perfect on the cast, I wouldn't trust it, or you might get 1 melee hit in the face at either end of the intervene. So I would just move away for a second, wait for the intervene, and then go back in. Just lose like 1 to 2 seconds of DPS, and the rest of your group will gain a massive amount, right? You see here now, boss going down, and yeah, we didn't really take that much damage because of the leap cancels. I think he cancelled 2 leaps, and yeah, I mean, we're very, very healthy. There was barely any scary moments, if any at all, in that fight. That was a 22 Fenrir, one of the harder tyrannical bosses in probably a large amount of the dungeons in this season so far. So we're now kind of through the first 2, we're through the 2 hard bosses, that those being Hyrja and Fenrir, and we've got a good amount of time. 15 minutes now at this point is good. We've obviously got some RP at the end with Odin and Skovald. You know, they like to stand around for a couple minutes, but we have like pretty much the percentage we need. You need 84% before you go up to Skovald. So I think it's 84 or 83.7 or something like that. That's what the 4 kings will give you. So we just do a bunch of bears. These are very, very easy percentage. It's going to give about 10% in this pool. Watch out though, they do have a frontal, of course. It's that rending clause that's going on the paladin. So if he's in range, they will cast that. If he's kiting them and out of range, I believe they don't cast it, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So just watch their cast bars to make sure. But it looks like as he's out of range, they are actually not casting it. However, they do constantly charge the tank, so they could charge, get in range, and start queuing it up. So just do watch out for the cast bar. Make sure you don't take a rending claw or you will go down. But pretty easy percentage. Usually the tank's going to go in, pop a defensive or something, build up a ton of threat, doing a bunch of damage, and then just start kiting. So just kind of like watch out. If you're ranged on that part, very, very easy. You just stand there and kind of tunnel into the, you know, AoE on the bears. But now we got the 84.81%. We're going to now actually shroud past these sentinels. Ideally, you don't want to pull any sentinels, even especially on fortified, but even on tyrannical. They have a lot of health. They take a long time to kill. If you can avoid it and your route allows it, you should try and not pull the sentinels. But we have picked up a mug of beer or mead off one of the tables before we did the shrouds. So we've got a mug of beer, and I'm going to show you what we do with that now to make the killing of the 4 kings a little bit faster, because we can now chain them. So pick up the beer before you go in the shroud, then wait for everyone, shroud past the sentinels, straight up the bridge. And what we want to do is throw the beer onto any one of these kings, which is going to make it kind of like hostile. and then you can kind of skip all the RP and waiting around. Usually if you don't do this, you'll only be able to pull one at a time, then another one at a time, and then the last two together. But if you use the beer trick, we threw the beer on that star marked one, the second one from the left, and he's now actually helping us attack the first one we activated, which is the orange mark one. Now after the beer effect wears off, which is like 15 seconds or so, he's actually we're gonna be able to talk to him. So yeah, we're basically getting some free DPS from him, and now we can kind of chain him. We can like chain pull him in without waiting for the RP, and you can only have 2 kings active at a time doing it this way. There is a way to do all 4 at once, but it's pretty risky. I haven't actually been in a party yet that's done it, and I personally don't actually know how to do it, so I can't tell you in this video. But now we can pull these 2 together, and as soon as one of these dies, we can pull the remaining one onto the last guy. So we're just always doing 2 targets, which means that we can always cleave. We obviously have to deal with 2 sets of abilities. There's an interrupt after you kill the first one. They're gonna keep doing an interruptible cast. Just make sure you assign or you call I'm kicking star, for example. Just make sure you tell your group. Usually the interrupts won't, someone will get them, especially if you have a few in your group. So nothing too crazy to worry about. Other than that, it's just gonna put some random damage on someone. But yeah, nice tech. It definitely speeds up this trash pack a lot, and there's quite a large amount of percentage. As I said, 84%, and you should be good. If you're playing a class with CC as well, on this last king, King Tor, he's going to summon like ancient ancestors. What you want to do is use some CC on them. You can see the rogue has blinded one there. You can fear them, you can stun them, you can roots them or something on a druid. Anything like that is going to be great. I could use my Sigil of Misery to fear it as well. Anything you can to kind of keep it away. If you run out of CCs, your tank's probably just going to have to kite it away from the ancestors, because if the ancestor, which slowly does walk towards King Tor, if that one reaches him, then he's just going to do like a big AoE, and it might kill someone off. But yeah, now we're at to the RP. Now they did actually reduce the RP, which is great. Definitely helped a bit on the timer. I think they reduced like an entire minute of RP, which is really good. Just make sure your tank picks up the shield to actually start that. And you can see here my DPS is looking pretty sweet at 103k just before Skovald. And at this point I'm thinking there's a good chance we could get 100k Halls of Valor key, which is pretty nice, to be honest. Now Skovald is very simple boss to do, to be honest. All you have to do is move away if you get that Fell Blaze charge, and then make sure that you're looking for the tank on the Ragnarok and standing into the shield. On my DH, obviously my build right now is Momentum build. I don't actually really risk it. I know the shield works like quite far back, so I could maybe do a Vengeful Retreat or a Fell Rush or something. But I don't risk it generally, just because one time I have actually taken a tick from that Ragnarok while I was like quite far behind the shield. So for the actual Ragnarok, you don't want to leave the shield. But for the second one, when he takes the shield and starts, firing out these little elementals, you can actually move around. You don't have to stand on top of the boss for that. But if you do, it's going to spawn those green elementals on the boss. And you need to be behind him, otherwise he's not going to take damage from your abilities. So stand behind him if you can, stand close so that it spawns the elementals close to the boss, and just cleave those down. They don't really do anything, they just leave that green stuff on the floor. They don't hit people, they don't do any like fireballs or anything, so very, very low prio. You should always be just focusing your damage on the boss. If you want to pad, great, but don't pad at the to the extent that you'll be losing out on boss damage, because this guy is just a big bag of health, like a target dummy. Doesn't really do much, as I said, but he just takes a while, especially on Tyrannical. But we got 9 minutes at this point, so it's pretty nice. I can't see us depleting this one, spoiler alert, we don't. But if you get to Odin with about, I'd say 4 minutes or so, you should be okay. So when you enter this room, you probably want to have about like 12 minutes or so left at the very minimum, because the Kings plus Skovald plus the RP in between Skovald and Odin, and then Odin himself is a decent amount of time spent. So the timer can be a little bit deceiving, but I actually do think that Halls of Valor is quite lenient now with the changes, because they did reduce that RP. I do think that this dungeon is pretty easy on the timer, so as long as you don't mess up, as you see, we've done like 0 deaths so far, and of course they said it's a deathless run, so if you don't mess up, the time is pretty okay. Even with, like, I wouldn't say our DPS is like crazy, like I'm doing a little bit more than the others. It's not bad by any means, but I think in some groups you could probably have everybody do 100k DPS, or you know, like the DPS that I'm doing here. So you should probably have, you know, if everyone was doing 100k, we'd probably have about 10 minutes left at this point, and that's like very easy. You don't need to do like crazy pulls. There's the only pulls that we did really that were like pretty big were the first pull, the pull after the first boss, and then there's like a double pull when you pull left and right going into the main halls, and then one of the big pulls on the stairs where we pulled all these shield maidens up onto the aspirant and purifier, right? That's like the 4 big pulls. And then, you know, the bears, I guess you could count as a big pull, even though they don't really do much. Then you've got the rams that we did, they don't really do much. And then yeah, everything else than that is pretty much like a single mob, like a boss, or just like 1 to 2 mobs like the wolf packs that we did right before Fenrir. So Odin then is a pretty simple encounter. Obviously you got that RP before he spawns down, but what we're going to do here is showcase some pretty cool stuff that I actually kind of learned in this dungeon. I don't watch a lot of high keys myself, so it was nice to see a tank doing this. But he's actually pulling the boss to the outer kind of ring of this room. Now this does 2 things. First, it's going to spawn these spears most likely on the edge of the room, which is going to make dodging the balls a little bit easier because they do spawn on a random player. And the second thing, the more important thing it's going to do, is actually going to make the killing of the ad when we run out of the ring way easier. So you can see here the ad spawns in the middle of the room. The ad's going to spawn in the middle of the room if you tank him in the middle of the room, in which case it's going to be a bit harder to get to, or onto the edge. So by standing Odin at the edge when he does the pull in here, we can actually just run out and interrupt that ad. I can obviously dash over to it and interrupt it, but a range kick would have done just the same. And it's actually going to mean that the ad is standing outside of the ring, which is going to mean that we can attack him while we're dodging that ring thing. So there's no downtime, the ad dies a bit quicker, and there's much less risk of the cast actually going through. Now, straight after the ad is down, Odin's going to do the rune phase. He's going to do an ability which blows up all the spears and sends out all those cheese puffs flying towards you. So make sure that you do dodge those. And then the runes are going to go out. So it's going to assign you a random color, 1 of 5 runes, and you need to run to your specific rune. Now, it's very important. I can't stress this enough. The amount of time I've seen people die to this, I've depleted keys to this. Do not be standing on a rune before the rune colors get assigned. If you're standing on a rune and you get assigned a different color to the rune that you're standing on, you're going to instantly die. So, you know, there's a 1 in 5 chance it could be the correct rune, but there's a 4 in 5 chance that it's not. So just make sure that you're not standing on a rune. And when those brands do go out, that's going to be when you want to pop a personal defensive cooldown, like a blur or any kind of damage reduction, because those runes, as they tick on you while you're running to one, is going to really hurt you. Now, there are weak auras and things like that that can assign you like a little map on your screen, and maybe even put a little arrow on your screen to direct you to the correct rune. But yeah, definitely you want to be popping a cooldown there and have your finger on your health potion, just making sure that you are ready to, you know, heal yourself back up if needs be. And yeah, once you get that angel phase, he's going to pretty much go down. That's when you want to pop your big cooldowns and things like that. And yeah, just burn down the boss, especially if you've got like 3-minute coolies and stuff like that. But yeah, that's Odin. That's Halls of Valor. And I got that whopping 3 score from there. And I'll put my overall on the screen as I kind of close out the video. If you want to have a little look at my overall DPS and my breakdown and what did what, compare it to your own if you're playing a Demon Hunter, then do so on the screen now. Let me know, as I said at the start, in the comments if you do want to see anything more like this. And yeah, swing by the live stream to, you know, ask me any questions, say hi, and just watch me play. Hopefully see you there or in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and as always, peace.